My name is Jusper Machogu from Kenya. I'm very young, as you can see. I'm also an agricultural engineer and a practicing farmer, a peasant farmer, I should say.
Very good. I'd like to start out maybe by talking about your pinned tweet. I think that's just a great thread that you have up there on your pinned tweet about what it's like to be a farmer in Africa. Do you want to talk about what you put up there and what the reception has been to that tweet?
Basically, because, what's going on in the Western world is people are talking about organic farming, sustainable living, sustainable agriculture. And I wanted to show people how we do it because how we're doing it is, I'd say, sustainably. We don't use much fertilizer. We do mostly manure. Manually, we do weeding manually, tilling, everything, harvesting, from A to Z. Everything is manual. So I wanted to show people what it is like. And the reception was really good. I think a few people saw the tweet and they liked what they did see. And they knew this is what our government is pushing us to. And that's why it went viral.
Yeah, I think it's a big eye opener for me. And did anybody with a ton of followers retweet it? Jordan Peterson or anything?
Jordan Peterson has retweeted some of my other work. I usually do posters and I'm trying to explain myself why I'm advocating for fossil fuels for Africa. So he retweeted, I think, 2 or 3 of my tweets a while ago. But I have Alex Epstein did retweet my work. I think there is I can't remember other people, but yeah. Even before Alex retweeted it, other people had it had gone viral in a way.
All right. So you personally are doing a lot of backbreaking labor, right? Or you're working with a hoe for just hours on end. You said on that thread that you don't use plows, you just use a hoe.
Oh yeah, I actually today I brought it with me. This is what it looked like. This is a hoe, and of course this is a wooden handle. So this is what we usually use. It's about 1 meter. The handle is about 1 meter tall or long. So that's what we use. And also I have a machete. We usually refer to it as panga. So that's what we use to cut trees and grasses for our cattle, maize when we harvesting, stuff like that. So that's what we use. We don't have access to farm machinery. In other places, we have other places in Kenya where people have access, farmers have access to tractors, but that's just a tiny percentage, around 4% in Africa. Compared to other places like in China, 75%, or India, 45%. So farm mechanization in Africa is just down, it's very low.
And I think you mentioned in that thread that someone you knew could work for maybe $1.50. Is that per hour, or is it per hour working with a hoe, or is it per several hours?
It's not per hour. That one, if I went today working, I'd till from, usually we do it from 8 to 1 or 2 in the afternoon, and you earn $1.50, something of the sort. So yeah, it's not per hour.
Okay. And I just wanted to compare that to the cost of electricity in your area. How much is that per kilowatt hour?
Okay, so per kilowatt hour right now it's 19 cents. That's USD. Compared to the US, I think 14 cents or 13 cents. In China, it's 10 cents. I have a friend and he was telling me at night, during not off season, peak season. So they usually buy electricity 1 kilowatt hour at 4-5 cents. So we have pretty expensive electricity throughout Africa because our government is busy chasing wind and solar, and they brag we have the biggest wind power plant in Africa, but have a look at our electricity prices. It says quite a lot, just as it does in California, in the US, and Germany, in Europe.
So is it that the people in your area that they have pretty reliable electricity, but they don't want to use it because it's so expensive? Is that the correct way to say it?
No, not that.
No.
That's not the right way
Okay.
to say it. So the thing is, okay, most people around here, because like we peasant farmers, people earning like maybe 300, 200 USD per year as profit. That's profit now. So a person earning that, there is no way this person is going to afford a microwave. There's no way this person is going to afford a refrigerator. There is no way this person is going to afford a laundry machine. So I've like been showing people how we do things around here. We do things manually. Most of the things are done manually. So if we don't have access to those things because we're poor, giving us electricity isn't going to change much, because what are we going to use the electricity for? What are usually, okay, a good example is our family. We're a family of 6 people, and in a month, we are, I'd say, an average family. Like if you look around our village, we well off around our village, I'm saying. So a family of 6 people, we use 12 to 15 kilowatt hours a month. That's so little compared to your refrigerator, Tom. So it's crazy. Until we in a position whereby like we are rich, there is no way electricity is going to be of like much impact to us.
Yeah, very interesting. So you use electricity for lights at home, but not much else, or what else do you use it for in your house?
Usually we do lighting. We have I think 7 to 12 watt of bulb, so maybe 5 or 6. We also have we charge our phones because we are younger generation. Actually, even my mom and my dad, they have a smartphone, so that's what we usually basically use it for. Oh, and TV and radio, only that.
Okay.
And by the way, most people around here, they use less than 10, I'd say, per kilowatt. That's household consumption. So 12, I think, 10, mostly under 10.
And how about your internet access? Is that just through your phone, or do you use anything else, a laptop or iPad or anything?
No, I use my phone. I do have a laptop, but it's dead. So I actually basically use my phone.
All right. So
and we have reliable internet access. Actually, in Kenya, we actually even have 5G access in some places. So that's a good thing.
All right. So, but all that Substack work you're doing, that's just done on your phone?
Yeah, on my phone.
Oh, how about cooking? How do you do your cooking?
Okay, so we use firewood. I'd say like 99.999% of people around here in my village, they use firewood. And that's true in most places in Kenya and in Africa, basically, because in Kenya, we get 70% of our energy from burning biomass. That's basically firewood and, charcoal. I actually even had a video on my, I think, Twitter or Substack, burning charcoal. It's a lengthy process, a process that takes time, but you get clean fuel compared to burning firewood directly. Also, we do use, sometimes we burn, after harvesting, let's say maize, we have the maize cobs, we burn those ones and they produce a lot of smoke, but it comes down to getting your food cooked or, you staying hungry. So I just remembered I saw a tweet a while ago. I think I saw a tweet by Antonio Guterres, and he was, I think, on top of like a big building, those big buildings, and he was standing by the window. That was during the forest fires in Canada recently. So the tweet went like pollution or something. I'm glad he didn't say climate change, because we know for sure wildfires have gone down. But so it's crazy because people are complaining, a lot of pollution. Come to Africa. That's what we use to cook our food. Like imagine you in a building, you in a house, in a home, and it doesn't even have a chimney because like most people cannot afford that. So it's all crazy. It's crazy. And by the way, that's like throughout Africa. It's happening throughout Africa. About 90% of like if you come to sub-Saharan Africa, about 90%, we get almost 90% of our energy from burning biomass. So that's crazy.
So in your area, what sort of houses do people have? What sort of roof, for example? Yeah.
Okay, so we have a while ago, like life is changing around here, and that's a good thing. Human flourishing at the end of the day, like we should all be about human flourishing. So around here, people have, they usually use wood and dung, and cow dung, like you mix cow dung and soil, you just mold it and then you place it as wall. So that's what we usually have. But we have a few other people, they can they have access to bricks. And because around here we usually mold bricks and we burn the bricks using firewood. It's a lengthy process, but some people can afford that.
But people are cooking with fires inside their house, and it's getting smoky in there?
Of course. A lot of smoke. Yeah.
Let's see. I also wanted to talk about travel. Like you travel when you have to go a long distance, several miles. Is that mostly by motorbike or no?
Yeah. Okay. So we have motorbikes around here. That's a good thing because like life has really transformed by the motorbike alone. The motorbikes, they have transformed our economies because like in Kenya, for instance, today we have, I think 2 million people employed by the motorbike industry, and they generate almost 2 billion in revenue every day. So that's a good thing. Like most youths around here are employed by motorbikes. So I remember a few years ago, okay, like in 20, because the motorbike industry picked up, I think by 2015. Before that, we used to, we have farms, tiny farms around here, but we also have others maybe a kilometer to 2 kilometers away. And this place is just hilly and, hills and stuff. So 2 kilometers away, and we will go and carry maize. Okay, after harvesting maize, we will carry that on our shoulders or our heads. 2 kilometers. So you're carrying a load of maybe 40, 50, 60, depending on your age and sex. Sex, yeah. So I know that's a tricky topic in the USA. So anyway, so over here, so you carry a load of 60 kilos on your head or your shoulders, 2 kilometers away. A motorbike usually carries around 150 to 200 kilos. And within a span of maybe 10 minutes, it has got the maize home and it has come back. So if like I'm walking, of course, I cannot walk as fast as a motorbike. So maybe 30 minutes all the way home and then back maybe 40 minutes, and I'm just carrying 40 kilos of maize. So they have transformed our lives. And so we usually have a drought in January around here, January to Feb. So throughout the rest of the year, we usually have rain, plenty of rain. So I usually wonder where those people preaching solar for Africa. I don't know if they have been here, because like if they were here, they'd know we go for days by day without sunlight. So solar panels wouldn't work. Anyway, back to motorbikes. So yeah, fetching water. So we sometimes, because our springs where we get water from, we have one kilometer away. We have another one about 600 meters away. So carrying 20 liters of water, that's about 20 kilos of water on your head, all the way 600 meters away, 1 kilometer away, it's not easy. Motorbikes really have transformed our economies.
Are there any cars or trucks on the roads at all?
Yeah, we have, I think we have maybe 4 people in our village with vehicles. personal vehicles, but that's just a tiny percentage, maybe 1%, 2%. So a tiny percent. But we have also public matatus, PSVs. So those ones really help.
Do most people just grow their own food, or you have markets or any such thing like a grocery store?
Around here, because I'm in the villages, people usually grow their own food. That's one of the easiest ways for one to survive, because like if you go to buy food and you are in the village, where do you get money from? Like, you're not working. We don't have online online businesses around here, or online jobs around here. So you have to work. You have to work for your own food. You have to grow your own food. But we have other people in towns, people, because like in Africa, urbanization is not like a big thing. Most people live in rural areas, I think about 70% or so. So, but that's changing. So for those people who live in town, they find ways to buy food, because to buy their food, because like if you are in a town, of course, you're not working in the agricultural industry, unless indirectly, not directly. So you can afford to buy food. And yeah, urbanization is a good thing also.
How about storing food or storing milk? I think you might have some milk cows on your farm. Is there any way to store
yeah.
it? Yeah.
So most people around here, where I'm from, we usually get a little milk from our cattle, our cows. So like ours, we get, I think, on average about 2 liters of milk a day, and that's throughout the year. After it has calved throughout the year, 2 liters compared to places in the US, I think 25 liters. So you cannot even compare the two. But that's a problem with very many issues. Okay, so how do we store our food? Mostly we cook what we wanna eat, because like we don't have plenty of food laying around. So we just cook what we can eat, and then we cook tomorrow. So for milk, we have people around. Okay, so we ferment our milk so it doesn't go bad, and we love it that way. In other places in Kenya, we have cooperative societies whereby farmers sell their milk to the milk industry or cooperative societies, and then after that it's processing and stuff.
I'm curious, how far is it to the nearest large farm with lots of tractors or anything like that?
I'm not so sure. Maybe I'd say, around here we don't have large farms, but around 40 kilometers away, we have Masai land, and in Masai people, we have a few people. I think if you look in your map, you can see Kilgoris, K-I-L. Okay, so Kilgoris. Okay, so if you go there, people use tractors, and that's just like 40 kilometers away.
I'm curious about, is there a lot of competition for the water? I think you mentioned on one of your tweets that kids might have to wait for quite a while after school before they can get the water and get home by 9 p.m.
Oh yeah. Usually in January, February, during the drought, that's very we cannot avoid it, because everybody is down there waiting for water, wanting water, fetching water. But in other times, because it's raining a lot, usually they don't have to wait. But it's a challenge. Like you can wait for 2 hours, 3 hours, even 4 hours for you to fetch the water. So it's a problem.
Does anybody have well water anywhere nearby, or any wells?
So wells? Yeah, we have a few schools around, maybe a kilometer this side and then a kilometer this side, maybe two. So we have, I think, 2 schools with boreholes, but that's just for the school. So it's not for the community.
And how about competition for wood? Is that hard to come by, or there's enough wood for everybody?
So around here, most people they have planted trees. Like, personally, I have very many trees, big trees. So most farmers have planted trees because we know how helpful they are. Like if I had a problem today, one of the easiest ways for me to get easy cash is by selling trees, because if I planted, let's say I planted maize, I have to wait 6 months for the maize to be ready. And then I can generate some revenue. But for a tree, you just plant it, and then like when it's ready, you don't even have to sell it. It just keeps on growing bigger and bigger, and that means more money.
Yeah, you tweeted out, or you said that the UN explicitly doesn't want you to develop, right? I wanted you to compare maybe how the UN looks at Africa and versus like China and Russia. Very different, right? Or even America looks at Africa like, we don't want you to develop.
Yeah, it's very different, completely different. So what's happening right now is the Western countries, they're coming to Africa. Of course, there is this rush for metals, cobalt especially, and copper. And it's funny that in January this year, Biden said, okay, we're not going to mine our copper because I think there is a copper mine, copper reserves in Minnesota, northern Minnesota or something. It's like wilderness. So Biden said, oh, no, we're not going to do that. But he had like a plan to do mining in Congo and Zambia, where we have child employment over there. It's all crazy. So that's just an example. And last year, I think there was this, the EU Commission had a meeting, and they had plans to build fertilizer plants in Africa. And then at some point they were like, no, we're not going to do that because it's going to clash with our net zero goals, our climate goals. And I think it trended recently. I don't know why, like 1 year later, that's when people have realized, oh, this happened. So I don't know who hid that, but okay, that's another example. So if we don't have access to fertilizers, how do we how do we produce our own food? It's all crazy. We cannot. So these people preaching, because that's what Europe is doing. It's preaching sustainable development and mostly organic farming. Organic farming is not going to work. It's not going to help. It's not going to feed the world, because what's a world without fertilizers? Today they feed half the population, 4 billion people. That's like, there wouldn't be 4 billion people in the world today without fertilizers. So if you say organic, you mean we're going to use manure. How much manure do we use? So a good example, urea, you just need 100 kilos of urea, because urea has got a high nitrogen content, 46%. So you just need 100 kilos for 1 hectare. How much manure do you need? You need 10 to 30 tons. 10 tons. So today I was thinking about it. I think our cow produces, I think, about 5 to 10 kilos of cow dung, 5 to 10. So I can't even imagine how do we get 10 tons? And you have to decompose that. You have to spread it. It's a lot of work. So all of that is just undoable. Without fertilizers, we don't have a modern civilization. So the West is all crazy. Another good example. So Russia, what Russia is doing recently, they had they sent to Kenya 34,000 tons of fertilizer, and that, like, they trying to tackle the problem from the root. So they know, okay, what Africa needs is fertilizer. Like, if we give them fertilizer, they're going to grow their own food. We don't have to give them aid, and of course that means employment. That's a good thing. The US instead is giving us food. Okay, thank you for the food. But then you're giving us food. Are you trying to make us lazy? Like, we can produce our own food. We just need fertilizer. What China is doing, China is actually very active in Africa, despite the fact that people are saying, oh, debt traps. No, 34% of our loans, they come from the Western nations. China, I think about 13% only. And their loans, they don't have like a high interest rate. So for China, 2%. For the Western nations, 5%. And yeah, so debt traps, no, not China. The Western nations are doing that, not China. So what China is doing in Africa is it's building. So we have the Belt and Road Initiative, or I usually refer to it as bridges and roads initiative. And that initiative has done a lot of good work in Africa. So it has got people like the Biden administration, it has got them worried. And that's why I think in the course of the year, we had Kamala Harris in Africa. She specifically went to Tanzania and I think Namibia and another country. So she visited those places. So because like the Biden administration is worried, Africa, China and Russia, they are they have a good social relationship with Africa compared to us. They're beating us because they're doing a lot of good work. And so when Kamala came to Tanzania, she was talking about 5G, like we're going to, because I think that's one of her, that's what the Biden administration is working towards. They want to have people having access to 5G. I recently saw her tweet talking about 5G and all Americans having access to internet, fast internet. Okay, that's a good thing for Americans. But come to a place like Tanzania, people are just worried about where they're going to get their next meal from. We don't, like, how do you even come to Africa and preach 5G? It doesn't make sense. So, and somebody said a good thing, like it was thought provocative, like it was provocative in a way. So they said Kamala lands in she lands in an airport built by the Chinese. She boards a vehicle to a meeting, one of those big conferences. So she boards a vehicle which uses a road built by the Chinese. She goes to a meeting, a building built by the Chinese, and then she goes there and says, "Oh, the Chinese are bad people for you." No, I don't think so.
Very interesting. I have a couple of things. You tweeted out some figures about fertilizer. I want to just read that. You see 20 to 30 kilograms of fertilizer per hectare in Africa compared to compared to 360 for China. So factor of over 10 times as much fertilizer in China, right? That number is 250 for India, 120 for the US, and 150 for the EU. 100. I was kind of surprised that the U.S. was 1/3 of what China is on that fertilizer front. But anyway, but then getting back to China, would you say that China possibly wants Africa to develop so that they can sell you stuff? I think you might have mentioned that. And maybe the U.S. doesn't want you to develop because you're going to cause bad weather, right? It's very crazy.
Yeah, the West don't want us to develop because first, climate change, but that's just, I'd say they're hiding behind climate change. The real reason is, of course, like if Africa developed, let me just say what Obama said in 2013 or 2015. So Obama said, like, if these youths around in this seminar, in this conference flourish, if they can afford cars and modern houses like American, the earth is going to boil over. That's what Obama said. So I think, it all boils down to ensuring that Africa doesn't develop, because the moment we develop, of course, a good example. So, right today, 70% of the phosphate, we have the phosphate rock in Morocco, 70% of the phosphate rock reserve in Morocco. And what does that mean? It means that the moment Africa starts using a good example, fertilizer, the phosphate rock for itself to grow its own food, the West is not going to have our resources. Like the moment we develop, we're going to start using our own oil. We're going to start using our own minerals, our own metals, and that isn't good for the Western nations because they're exploiting Africa, actually basically for zero. They come here, they give us a loan, and then they say, "Oh, you haven't paid our loans back." So what they do is give us that mine. Or if they don't do that, they bribe our leaders, and it's all crazy.
Are you familiar with the work of Whitney Webb and Ian Davis and sustainable debt slavery? Because I think that's what you're talking about, that it's a land grab.
No, I'm not familiar with their work, but please send me a link so that I can check it out.
I will do that. I think you mentioned that maybe 65% of the remaining untilled arable land in the world is in Africa, and Africa could feed the entire world if we were to use that land. Does that sound right?
Of course, because like even right now, we have a huge potential to feed ourselves. We have a huge potential because like right now, whatever we're producing in 1 hectare of land, a good example is corn. We're producing 2 tons. The US is producing 11 tons. But I know if we had access to fertilizers, we do 8 so easily. So we have the potential to double, triple, quadruple our production, our yields with access to fertilizers, synthetic fertilizers. But now the problem. So okay, it all boils down to degrowth and depopulation. So the moment you don't have access to that, you're not going to grow, and you're going to depend on us. You are saviors. We are your saviors.
I just wanted to check on the weather where you live. You live pretty close to the equator, right? Just a little south. And
yeah.
is there much variability throughout the year? You said you tend to have a drought in January, but does the temperature change that much, or is it relatively similar all year, or no?
It's about I'd say like constant. It doesn't change that much. So apart from January, where we have a drought, I think for 1.5 months or something of the sort. But even then, I think maybe in recent months, you have seen environmental organizations in Africa talking about droughts in Africa. Those people are just alarming the world. They are alarming the world. That's what they do best. So a good example is in Kenya, so there is a report by, I think, a PhD student in Nairobi University. He did that research in 1980s and 90s, I think 1980. So he had like a whole paper talking about drought, and there were far worse drought back in 70s, 60s, I think 30s and 1890s, very worse droughts. So we had people selling their own kids for food. Today, that doesn't happen. And even if you look at the livestock, the number of livestock, it has changed over the years. It has just grown. It has grown. It has gone up. But you don't see such news. So people are talking about droughts. No. And imagine if we had access to fossil fuels, if we had access to energy, we do plenty much. A good example is Somalia. So people are talking about Somalia. Somalia has been in a famine for very many years, and that gives the UN a purpose. If we didn't have that drought, the UN, refugee and climate, they wouldn't have something to do. So they employing themselves. Anyway, if Somalia, an example, had access to fossil fuel, of course, they'd have access to irrigation. So they can desalinate and drill boreholes, because how do we do that? We use fossil fuel. And then the irrigation pumps, fossil fuels. The pipes themselves, fossil fuel. So we could do a lot of good work using fossil fuels, and fertilizers, fossil fuels. So we could irrigate our land, and then we could plant, because like if it's a desert, there is no way you're going to transform a desert, no matter what you do, and leave alone the holistic land management practices. It's a desert. There is no way you're going to get rainfall, like it's a desert. So if you had access, like we can desalinate water, we can drill boreholes, pump it all the way to Somalia, irrigate a big piece of land, plant stuff over there. We're going to feed Somalia by that. There is no way we're going to help Somalia without fossil fuel. Yeah.
So among the people living in your area, there's no sense that the weather's getting worse and, oh no, that's a climate crisis. Zero sense of that,
No,
right?
Nothing. People, actually, even if we had that, people wouldn't be worried, because we have far bigger problems to worry about. Like, where's my supper going to come from? Where's my breakfast going to come from? How am I going to school my kids? stuff like that. So we wouldn't worry about climate change.
And then getting back to electricity, you do, since you are near the equator, I think people think, oh, that's great because the sun angle is a good angle and you can power everything with solar panels. But I think I heard that you did have solar panels and you don't use them anymore. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah. So the good thing, okay, in Kenya is a fast developing economy. We have, I think, about last year we had 75% of our people, the whole population connected to the grid household. I think it has gone up by maybe 5%. So we are at the 80s, maybe 82, 85. And that's a good thing.
What is the source of your grid electricity? What's generating the power to turn on your lights right now?
Okay. So solar. So solar panels are, I think, a good technology, but they don't do much because like even in Germany, they work 12% of the time. In Africa, I think maybe 25% because people think because we are living along the equator, plenty of sunshine, but also we have plenty of rain. That means plenty of clouds, a lot of clouds. So we go for days, we go for maybe 2 days, 3 days. In other times, we go for a whole week without sunshine, maybe 30 minutes, maybe 20 minutes, maybe 30 minutes, maybe 1 hour. So solar panels they wouldn't change much. Having access to energy, electricity from maybe, a good example will be nuclear. Nuclear is good, but nuclear is very expensive. And I'm advocating for fossil fuels for Africa because we have our own fossil fuels. Nuclear is pretty expensive. So a good example in Kenya, like today we wanted to build our own nuclear power plant. For 1 kilowatt, it will cost us 5,000 to 6,000 compared to hydro and geothermal, because we have plenty of geothermal, which costs maybe 2,500, 3,000 at max. So no debt traps if we're going to have access to hydro, like we have hydro and geothermal. Let's tap that. Let's use our own fossil fuels, no debt traps.
Okay.
Oh, and there was a report. I think there was a report in 2017 or 2018. It's a peer-reviewed paper, because I know most people want to hear that peer-reviewed paper. So let me settle that science for you with some cash. So we had there is that peer-reviewed paper. It was a comparison between using a diesel-powered generator in some rural area in Tanzania compared to a solar panel. And the research says, the paper says, it doesn't make sense. Like the cost of buying a solar and using it is not going to, and generating now, like when you start generating your own electricity, it's not going to buy the solar panel. At the end of the day, you realize that using the diesel generator is the best option.
And what is powering your grid right now, though? Do you have a power plant? Or what is that?
So yeah, right now we have mostly geothermal and hydro. In Kenya, generally, we have that. I think about 90% of our electricity, most of the time, is coming from those two sources. Also, we have wind. I don't know how much of our electricity comes from wind because, of course, they don't release those figures, the numbers. But we have, I think, about 400 megawatts of electricity generation capacity with a wind power plant in Kenya, the biggest wind power plant in Africa. But we don't have the figure, so I wouldn't be so sure about it.
I'm just wondering about all the farm output in your area. Does all of that stuff get used locally, or does it get sent out somewhere?
Okay, most of the time, like we don't produce that much. And okay, for food crops, we don't produce that much. They just about enough for us to consume. But even today, because fertilizer prices have gone really up, we're producing so little. Actually, they have gone really, really up. Because like in 2020, I was buying a bag of DAP, 50 kilos of DAP at $32, I think $33. Today, at $69. So less than 3 years down the line, it has gone really, really up. So if like I was using, let's say an example was using $50 to buy fertilizer, I'd still be using $50 to buy fertilizer, only that I'd be getting less, maybe half the fertilizer that I used to get. So that's what most farmers, they were in that predicament at the start of this year. And most farmers actually planted using maybe half to zero, because like everything has gone up, inflation, everything has gone up. Anyway, most farmers produce just about enough. And we actually import maize, because maize is our staple food crop mostly in Kenya. We importing that from other countries and outside Africa sometimes, which is a wonder. And what we usually do most is, we have tea around here, and that's a cash crop. So we producing plenty of that. And the government has found ways to subsidize fertilizer for tea, but not fertilizer for farmers. It doesn't make sense. Cash crops for exports, we're going to give you subsidized fertilizer. And for food crop, you need to find a way to work on that. Get your own fertilizer. Mm-hmm.
I was just reading that there's this whole issue of cut flowers being sent out from Kenya, that's a pretty major business in Kenya, but there are some people who want to cut back on it because it causes bad weather and we shouldn't be shipping flowers elsewhere. So let's cut off that market. Do you have any thoughts on that?
And there's a lot of crazy stuff going on throughout the country, throughout Africa. Personally, I would be much comfortable if we were, because like we have a big area in Kenya called Naivasha. Naivasha is in the Rift Valley. So over there, people have greenhouses, and actually most people are not Kenyans. They're from maybe India and other countries. So those people, they are doing roses usually, and other horticultural produce, usually flowers. They're doing that, and then they're selling, because I don't care if you give me a rose or I don't care. So the best market is in the EU and those other Western, maybe the US, those Western countries. So I would be much more happier if they were doing food for us. They were growing food for us, because I know, like, if they did that, we would buy their produce anyway. But of course, doing farming for export is 5 times more revenue generating compared to doing farming for like local market. So it's tricky.
So are you active at all in politics in Kenya to try to bring some sanity to energy policy, either locally, right in your village, or elsewhere in Kenya?
Okay. What's happening right now, because like our government is doing a lot of harm, especially when it comes to, I think there was a trending Wall Street Silver. They did a clip on the demonstration right now going on. People are protesting against the government because our fertilizer prices have gone up, fuel prices have gone up, and actually the IMF and World Bank, they're cheering the government of Kenya. You're doing some amazing work by doing that, because like the government just ended fertilizer and fuel subsidies, and that's what, of course, the World Bank and IMF were doing. That's why they were cheering the government. But now the citizens, because like the moment you increase fuel prices, what's going to happen is everything else is going to go up, because the energy industry runs every other industry. So everything has gone up, soap up, sugar up, everything is up, and people are not okay with that. So we having demonstrations. Last week, I think we had one demonstration. The other week we had one. This week we're going to have, I think, maybe 3, or the next week, because Friday. So next week we're going to have 3 days demonstrations, and until the government listens. And I think that's a good thing, because that's what every other country which feels that their government is not working for them does. They go out there to the streets, and then they tell the government, okay, you need to listen to us.
And all of these crazy policies are coming externally, right? That if Kenya was left to make their own decisions without those influences, they wouldn't be doing this crazy stuff, right?
Of course, but our president is a climate zealot, I'd say. So he's advocating. Okay, he's like a big speaker when it comes to climate change. Recently, there was that big summit. Africans say, "Oh, we need climate reparations. We need to be funded." So he was he was among those top speakers, and the moment he just stepped on the stage, everybody went nuts. They were cheering. Like, he's recognized because he's like a big speaker when it comes to climate change. And I don't know. I'm not so sure if, okay, much is happening because like the West is pushing African countries to go green. Actually, we have always been green, but they want us to continue remaining green. They don't want us to develop. But then our leaders, they are also partly to blame.
Okay, I 100% think that you should end up saying this type of stuff on like Joe Rogan, et cetera. Would that interest you if you had the chance? Because I think
Oh, thank you.
people desperately need to hear this from you. Is anyone else from Kenya speaking out as you are that I'm not aware of yet? Because I want to follow them too.
I haven't. Okay, I know a guy called Checo. Okay, I'll send you his Twitter handle. He doesn't talk much about it, but he's like a work person. I also there is another guy called Abdi or something. He's a good friend of mine, but okay. So we have a few people, but in Africa we don't have that many. I actually haven't seen people from other countries. Maybe I'm not looking hard enough. Maybe, or maybe we have people concerned about. Oh, we have one person from I think South Africa. I'll send you his Twitter and username. I have forgotten his name. But okay, I think youth and other people around here, they more concerned about what am I going to eat tomorrow than they are concerned about what's going on around the world. But they don't know politics runs the world.
Do the people in your local area, do a lot of them actually go on Twitter, for example, or they're using the same internet access that you are, so they are able to do what you're doing, or no?
Nah, most people use Facebook, and I don't think Facebook is a good platform to do that kind of stuff. And most people actually over here don't really care much about politics and climate change shenanigans. They wouldn't care.
So one of my favorite things that you've been doing lately is offering these internships to people like Greta and Sophia. How's the reception of that been? Nobody has taken you up on that yet, have they?
Oh, yeah. And Michael Mann, I think I've also invited Antonio Guterres, Greta Thunberg, Sophia Kiani. There is another guy, Bill McKibben or something.
Yeah.
So I've been trying. I don't know if I should say this. I also invited Kamala Harris, his dad. I actually wrote him an email, and he seems to be a very nice person. So he actually responded to me. He told me, "Oh, I know." I actually said, "I know what your daughter is doing, and whatever she's doing is not good for us. She's like promoting anti-development policies in Africa." And he was like a really nice person. He wrote back to me, told me, "Oh, I'm so sorry about that. I would have loved to be like an intern, but I cannot." So like he was all good about it. But these other people have invited, none of them has responded, especially like none of them has responded. Most of them have blocked me because like I've met other people saying, "Oh, what Africa needs is renewable energy." I tell them, "Okay, come to Africa, come to Kenya, rural Kenya. I have a net zero or sustainable internship program. Why don't you join me? Let's do what you're preaching. Like, why don't you come experience it?" And most people end up blocking me. And from those big people, none of them has taken up my offer.
I just think it's so amazing that Greta thinks that someone has stolen her childhood when she's living this ultra cushy lifestyle, right? She never has to walk anywhere for water, and there's plenty of food and everything she wants for nothing. And thinks someone has stolen her childhood. While you have your kids that are waiting 3 hours for water before they get home at 9 p.m. It's amazing. I think more people need to understand what it's like over there. So I think you're just doing a great job of helping people understand what's happening over there.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Tom.
Have you had a chance to travel much outside of your local area personally?
I haven't been outside the country. So last year I was supposed to go to the UK for my master's. Okay, I'll of course share much about this in the coming maybe 2 months, because like we have a plan. So I was supposed to go to the UK, but that didn't happen because of big reasons. But no, I haven't been able to travel outside the country. But throughout Kenya, I think I've traveled to most towns, because back in university, I had the chance to. Usually, we were traveling to check out manufacturing industries, processing industries around the country, and of course, renewable energy sources. Like we visited, we have a wind turbine power plant somewhere in Gong near Nairobi. So we visited that. We visited other places where they use human excrete to produce biogas. So yeah, I've had a chance to travel inside the country.
Okay, I'm thinking it'd be great if you could travel everywhere and do lots of speaking and go on lots of podcasts and just spread the knowledge that you have of actually living the life that you have. I think it's incredibly important for way more people to know what you know. So I'm so happy that you're so young and you're interested in talking. I think it's going to happen. I do. Why wouldn't it happen?
Of course. And like my main target is, like, I want fossil fuels for Africa. I want energy for my people, because without energy, there is no way we're going to develop. So I want Africa to flourish, to develop.
Yeah, one plus already is that Alex Epstein is listening to you, right? That's a huge plus.
Oh, yeah. Big good friend, I'd say.
Yeah, you've been on his podcast once already, right?
Yeah.
Let's see. Did you want to mention at all? I heard you mention the 4 pillars of modern civilization on a different podcast. Do you want to mention those?
Sure. Okay. So we have the four pillars of modern civilization. And the point number 1 will be, the first pillar will be fertilizers. Without synthetic fertilizers, we wouldn't have a modern civilization. 4 billion people today, they're supported by synthetic fertilizers. And that's a good thing. So number 2, we have plastics. Today, life starts in a hospital, and the hospital is usually covered by lots of plastics. A quarter of modern hospital equipment is made of PVC. PVC is just plastic, fossil fuel products. So another thing, so number 3 is steel. We wouldn't have modern roads. We wouldn't have modern buildings without steel. We wouldn't even have mining without steel. We don't have modern civilization. We don't have modern buildings. We don't have excavators. We don't have earth movers. We don't have machinery. We don't have tractors. We don't have anything. We don't have mining. We don't have anything. So number 4 is cement or concrete, because like concrete is cement plus other aggregates and water. So without cement, we wouldn't have modern buildings. We wouldn't have roads, and so we wouldn't have a modern civilization without the 4 pillars of modern civilization. That's just it.
Very, very good. I'm just thinking, what can we do to help you spread your message? Like funding would help, right? Funding to get you a laptop and get you some travel or whatever else. Do you agree? Funding would help?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I would appreciate that, especially like if I had a laptop, and wouldn't mind that if somebody can, as a way to ship a laptop all the way to Kenya, I'd appreciate that. But one of the best ways for people to support me is sharing my work. I actually have a Substack. It's all free, no subscription fees. So that will be a good start. You share my work, you follow me on Twitter, you share my work, you follow me on Substack, you share my work, and maybe you could buy me a coffee. Usually I say, buy me pineapple. That will be a good start because I have so much to do. I have so much to share to the world, and funding will be a good thing for me.
How would you get to Nairobi if you need to go there? Would you take a motorbike, or you take a motorbike part way and take a bus, or how does that work?
So I take a motorbike from around home because, from here to the nearest town for, I think, around 5 kilometers away. Then I board the tiny vehicles to maybe 5 kilometers away. Now that's where I'm going to board a bus to Nairobi or a matatu to Nairobi, a PSV.
Okay, very good. Let's see. Yeah, sorry to bother you with these tiny questions, but it's all very interesting, I think, to find out what your life is like. What did I forget to ask that I should have asked here before we wrap up?
Okay, so I think let me just talk a little bit about why Africa needs fossil fuel. So first, we need energy. We need plenty of energy. As I said earlier, the energy industry runs every other industry. We need lots of fossil fuel, and renewables I ain't gonna do it because that's just electricity. We don't need much electricity unless we flourish, unless we develop. How do we develop? One of the best things for us to do is improve agriculture, because 50 to 70% of African, they earn a livelihood from agriculture, or they're employed by agriculture. So improving agriculture is one of the easiest ways for those people to become richer, to have more. And we having more means we can afford a refrigerator, for instance. We can afford a microwave. We can afford to travel, not like Americans, but we can afford to travel. It's a wonder. Like if you come to Kenya, most people actually haven't seen a lion, but we have people from Europe. They have been to Kenya in various occasions, various times. They know what a lion looks like. Most people around here, they haven't seen a lion. And we have lions maybe 40 kilometers away, 50 kilometers away in a park. So we first need to flourish. We first need energy, versatile, affordable energy that's scalable, energy that can run tractors, that can run machines, that can run industries. That's what we first need.
Fantastic stuff. That is really good stuff. Anything else before we wrap up?
I think that's just about it, but maybe. So I know most people in the Western nations think China and Russia are bad people for Africa. I'm telling you, they're not bad people. Maybe they have other hidden agendas, but we haven't seen them so far. Right now, what they're talking about is African flourishing, Africa developing, and that's a good thing. That's what we want. So until the Western nation can give us what the Chinese and Russians are giving us, I don't think we're going to be friends for good friends for a very long time. So those Western especially environmental organizations like the UN, Greenpeace, Just Stop Oil, which should be Just Stop Oil in Africa especially. Those Western organizations, what they're doing is just harming us. It's hurting us in bad ways. So I don't know what they should do, but living in Africa will be a good start. We don't need them here. What we need is just energy. That's about enough. And we have our own fossil fuels. We're not going to ask for funds. We're not going to ask for funding. We just need investors to come to Africa. They drill our oil. They explore our oil. Then they drill it. Then they sell it to them, to local markets and international markets. And they generate revenue from that. We're going to pay them using our own oil. We don't need aid. We don't need solar panel in form of aid. We don't actually even need food for aid. We can grow our own food. We are a rich nation. So, yeah.
Okay, that's a good point, I think, to wrap up on. But thank you very much. I totally appreciated this, and I hope we can do it again.
Thank you very much, Tom.
All right. Talk to you next time. Jusper Machogu.